My son stole all my savings, $800,000, and told me I didn't need it anymore. The boy I raised alone, the man whose every dream I funded, emptied my life's work behind my back. And the worst part, he did it to keep his wife happy. Her bags, her cars, her vacations, paid with the money I saved to survive. That was the moment I realized I wasn't family anymore. I was an ATM they didn't think could fight back. I first realized something was wrong when I logged into my bank account on a quiet Sunday morning. The screen looked lighter. Too light. My hands shook as I refreshed the page again and again. $803,274. $14,982. First, I thought it was a glitch. I'm 67, not the smartest with online banking, so I even cleaned my glasses and tried again. Same number. Same emptiness. $800,000. Gone. And before I even processed the panic tightening in my chest, one thought hit me harder than the missing money. There were only two people who ever had access to that account. My son and me. My mouth went dry. Something told me this wasn't a mistake. Something told me this was betrayal. And deep down, I knew who it had come from. My fingers trembled as I dialed my son's number. He picked up on the second ring, sounding annoyed, like I was interrupting his day. "Mom, what now?" he sighed. I swallowed hard. "Ethan, there's money missing from my account. A lot of it." There was a long pause. Too long. Then he said the one sentence that made my knees go weak. "Yeah, took it." "Relax. You weren't using it." For a moment I couldn't breathe. "You took it," I whispered. "That was my entire life savings. That was for my old age, my medical bills." He cut me off. "Mom, stop being dramatic. Madison needed help. Her parents don't support us. And honestly, you're living alone. You don't have big expenses." Madison, his wife, the woman with 10 designer handbags and a new luxury SUV every year. My throat tightened. "Ethan, you drained everything I had," I said, voice breaking. He exhaled sharply, like I was complaining about something small. Like I didn't matter at all. "We'll pay you back someday. Just don't stress. And please, stop calling me about money. It's embarrassing." And before I could say another word, he hung up on me. The boy I sacrificed everything for had just stolen my future and ended the call, like I was no one. For a long time I just sat there. Phone still in my hand, call ended, breath shallow. Then something inside me shifted. I needed to know why. Why would my own son steal from me? So I checked my transaction history. One by one, the withdrawals appeared. $20,000 to a luxury spa resort. $35,000 to a high-end jewelry store. $18,900 to a designer boutique. $120,000 transfer labeled Madison's Business Fund. $46,500 for car upgrades. $7,800 for a birthday event planner. $62,000 for a private Maldives vacation. Every line felt like a slap. This wasn't survival. This wasn't emergency. This wasn't family. This was greed. Madison had spent my life savings like it was her birthday money. And Ethan, the son I raised alone, the son I protected from everything, the son I worked 3 jobs to support, had let her. No, he had enabled her. When I reached the last transaction, my heart dropped. Authorized by Ethan Matthews. My son hadn't just stolen from me. He'd done it proudly. My vision blurred with tears. I wasn't just robbed of money. I was robbed of trust, of respect, of the last fragile piece of dignity I had left. And as much as it broke me, I knew this was only the beginning. I decided to call Madison, not to fight, not to accuse, just to understand. She answered on speakerphone, her voice sugary and sharp at the same time. "Oh hey, Ethan told me you're being weird about money." Weird. About $800,000. I swallowed, the anger burning in my throat. "Madison, that money was my retirement, my medical security. You two should have asked me." She laughed. Actually laughed. "Asked you? For what? You don't do anything with it. You sit at home, watch TV, go grocery shopping. Why should 800 grand just sit there when we need it now?" Her tone changed, colder, bolder. "You lived your life. Let us live ours." For a moment I couldn't speak. Then she delivered the final blow. "You're old, Carol. You don't need that kind of money anymore. My hand shook so badly I almost dropped the phone. Well, unnecessary. In the way. That's what I had become in her eyes. And my son had let her speak to me like that. I whispered, voice breaking. You stole everything I worked for. Madison scoffed. We're family. You can't steal from family. And then she hung up, just like Ethan did. I stared at the silent phone. And for the first time in my life, I felt truly, completely alone. As the call ended, I set my phone down and felt the room tilt slightly. $800,000. My entire life's work. Not because of strangers. Not because of scammers. But because of the two people who should have protected me in my old age. My chest tightened, breath coming in gasps. I clutched the edge of the kitchen counter just to stay upright. I had survived losing my husband. I had survived raising my son alone. I had survived decades of struggle. But this betrayal felt like it was killing me from the inside. I slid down to the floor, my back against the cabinets, and cried in a way I hadn't cried in years. Not quietly, not politely, but like someone whose whole world had been taken. Every bill I paid, every birthday cake I baked, every college tuition check, every loan. Every night I stayed awake waiting for him to come home. Every sacrifice. It all flashed through my mind like a cruel movie. And one thought kept echoing. How could my own child see me as worthless? The kind of worthless you could rob, and still sleep at night. My tears soaked the front of my sweater. And in that moment on that cold kitchen floor, I finally understood something. They weren't going to give the money back. They didn't even think they did anything wrong. If I wanted justice, if I wanted dignity, I would have to fight for myself. The next morning, after a night of no sleep, swollen eyes, and a pounding headache, I made a decision. I needed to see my son face to face. Words over the phone could be twisted. Excuses could be made. But if he looked me in the eyes, I would know the truth. So I grabbed my coat, pulled myself together, and drove to his house. When I got there, the driveway told me everything before I even knocked. A brand new luxury SUV, still with temporary plates, bought with my money. My hands shook as I rang the doorbell. Madison opened the door. She didn't look nervous. She didn't look guilty. She looked annoyed, like I had interrupted her morning routine. Oh, Carol. Not Mom. Not are you okay? Just Carol. What are you doing here? Before I could answer, Ethan appeared behind her. His face didn't show remorse. It showed irritation. Mom, we told you. Stop making this a big deal. Big deal. My life savings were a big deal. I stepped inside without asking, my voice thin but steady. I want to hear you say it to my face. Tell me you took the money. And that it wasn't a mistake. Ethan crossed his arms. It wasn't a mistake. We needed it. I whispered. Madison's fingers slid into his. My son leaned into her touch. And then he said the sentence that broke me more than losing the money. Mom, you should be grateful we took it. At least it's being used for something useful. Useful. My future. My security. My last protection in old age. Useful. It was then I realized. I wasn't fighting for money anymore. I was fighting for the last bit of respect my own child had for me. And I wasn't going to let him take that too. I stood there in their beautiful living room. The marble floors, the designer furniture, the giant television. All bought with the money I had spent a lifetime earning. And Ethan had the nerve to look at me like I didn't belong there. He walked past me, opened the fridge, poured himself orange juice. As if this was a casual conversation. Mom, he said, sipping it. You're blowing this out of proportion. Madison and I are building a life. Future. You should want to help us. My heart hammered painfully. I did help you, I whispered. Your entire childhood. Your education. Home. Everything you have started with me. Madison leaned against the counter with a smirk. Carol, you raised him. Great. But he has a wife now. His priorities have changed. The words felt like claws. Ethan nodded along like a trained puppet. That money was sitting there doing nothing. We couldn't wait forever for you to decide to use it. Use it. Use it for what? For my medical bills. For emergencies. For the old age where I would depend on no one. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. You stole from me, I said quietly. You didn't ask. You didn't tell me. You took everything. Madison rolled her eyes. We can't steal from family. You raised him. So technically, it's all shared. Ethan didn't even flinch. He let her say it. He let her rewrite the meaning of everything I'd ever done for him. But then Madison said the one thing she never should have said. Honestly, Carol, you're almost 70. How much longer did you expect to use that money anyway? Time froze. Ethan didn't correct her. He didn't defend me. He didn't even look ashamed. Something in me snapped. A quiet, sharp crack deep inside my chest. At that moment I knew. I was no longer his mother. I was an inconvenience standing between him and the lifestyle he wanted. I stepped back toward the door, my voice trembling but clear. Both of you have taken enough from me, I whispered. You won't take one more thing. And as I walked out of that house, I promised myself something. They were going to pay for what they did. Legally, publicly, and permanently. I walked out of their house without looking back. If I turned around even once, I knew I'd break. I knew I'd beg. I knew I'd crumble the way they expected me to. But this time I didn't. I got into my car, shut the door, and for a few seconds just stared at the steering wheel. My hands trembling so hard they wouldn't grip it. My son had looked me in the eyes and said, I didn't need my own money. My daughter-in-law had told me I was too old to matter. And together they had drained my future like it was pocket change. But as tears dripped onto my lap, something inside me shifted. A cold, steady fire replacing the panic. If they saw me as weak, then they had forgotten who raised him. I wiped my face, took a deep breath, and started the engine. I didn't know exactly what the legal system would do for someone like me. A retired woman with no power, no spouse, and now no savings. But I knew one thing with absolute clarity. I was done crying. I was done begging. I was done being the old lady who wouldn't need the money anyway. I drove straight to the one person who had stood by me through every chapter of my life. Margaret. If anyone could help me think clearly, plan properly, and stand tall again, it was her. And as I pulled into her driveway, headlights cutting through the early evening darkness, I made myself a promise. Ethan and Madison had just turned this into a battle, and I wasn't going to lose. Margaret opened the door before I even knocked. One look at my face, and her smile vanished. Oh God, what did they do now? She whispered, pulling me inside like I was a child coming in from a storm. The moment she shut the door behind us, I broke. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just a quiet, shaking collapse into the chair as the truth spilled out of me. They took everything, Maggie. All my savings, every dollar. She froze, then slowly sat opposite me. Tell me exactly what happened, she said, voice firm, not soft. So I did. Every word, every detail, every cruelty. How Ethan told me. You weren't using the money anyway. How Madison smirked behind him like it was a victory. How they believed stealing my life savings was for their new future. When I finished, Margaret didn't gasp. She didn't cry. She didn't hug me and say, everything will be okay. Instead, she stood up straight, jaw clenched, eyes blazing. Then we fight, she said, and blinked. I don't know how, I whispered. I'm old, Maggie. They won't listen to me. I have nothing left. She leaned down, gripped my shoulders and said, you raised that boy. You worked your whole life. You survived everything life threw at you. Don't tell me you're weak. Then she added something that hit me harder than Ethan's words. You may feel broken, but you are not alone. And we are going to get your money back. For the first time since the nightmare began, I felt a flicker, tiny spark of hope. Margaret grabbed her phone, opened her contacts and said, I'm calling someone. He's a financial attorney. And tomorrow morning, we're going to his office. I stared at her. Do you think I really have a chance? She didn't hesitate. No, Linda. You don't have a chance. You have a case. And just like that, for the first time in weeks, felt strong again. The next morning, Margaret practically dragged me into a downtown office building with tall glass doors and cold marble floors. I felt completely out of place. An old woman clutching a small purse, surrounded by people in suits who walked like they owned the world. But Margaret walked with confidence, like she'd been preparing for this moment her whole life. We reached a door that read, Daniel Brooks, financial attorney. Margaret knocked once and entered. Daniel stood up as soon as he saw us. A calm, serious man in his 40s with kind eyes. Not the arrogant type I had expected. "Mrs. Walker," he said, extending his hand to me. "Please sit. Your friend told me some of what happened, but I want to hear it from you." My voice trembled as I explained how Ethan had access to my accounts, how he quietly withdrew money over months, how Madison used it for vacations, designer bags, and a new car. Daniel didn't interrupt, didn't question my memory, didn't dismiss me like just another confused elderly woman. He listened, really listened. When I finished, I braced for the usual. "There's nothing we can do." But instead, he opened a file and said the words I had been desperate to hear. "This is financial exploitation of a senior citizen." My breath caught in my chest. He continued, "Unauthorized withdrawals, misuse of durable power, coercion, fraud by a family member." He tapped his pen on the table. "Mrs. Walker, this isn't a family argument. This is a crime." I felt my heart pounding so loud I could hear it. "See crime," I whispered. Daniel looked me straight in the eye. "Yes, and if you allow me to represent you, I will help you recover the stolen funds and hold your son legally accountable." My hands shook. "I don't want to destroy him," I whispered, voice breaking. "He's my son." Daniel leaned forward. "You're not destroying him. You're stopping him before he destroys you." Margaret held my hand tightly, finally nodded. "All right, do whatever you need to do." Daniel gave a small, reassuring smile. "Good. Then the first step is simple. We file a legal claim. And trust me, once he receives the notice, he will have to respond." For the first time since Ethan stole my savings, I felt protected. Not by my son, not by my family, but by a stranger who believed me, and a friend who refused to let me fall. When I got home that evening, I opened my laptop and checked my bank again, hoping, praying that maybe I had read something wrong. But no. $0. My life, my security, gone. My hands started shaking. And suddenly, a memory hit me. My husband and I sitting at our kitchen table 20 years ago, planning our retirement. He said, "Evelyn, no matter what happens, this money will keep you safe." And now the boy he raised had taken that safety from me. That night, I finally gathered the courage and called my daughter-in-law Melissa. Her voice was cold, like she already knew why I was calling. She said, "Melissa, did you know Mark took all my savings?" She didn't even pretend to care. She laughed softly and said, "Evelyn, relax. You don't need that money. We're building a future. You should be happy for us." Happy. My retirement gone. My security gone. My trust gone. And she wanted me to be happy. Before I could respond, she added one more line that cut deeper than anything Mark said. "Honestly, you're old. What were you going to do with all that money anyway?" Then she hung up. I sat on my couch for hours. No TV, no lights, just silence. For the first time in my life, I felt unwanted, like a burden. My own son and his wife decided I didn't deserve my own money. That's when a thought hit me that scared me more than anything. If they can empty my accounts, what else can they do? I knew I needed help. So I picked up the phone and called the only person who never left my side. My best friend, Gloria. Gloria arrived faster than I expected, still in her slippers, hair messy, holding a warm coat for me. She looked at my face once and knew something was terribly wrong. I told her everything, every detail, every word Mark and Melissa said. Gloria didn't interrupt once. When I finished, she took a deep breath and said quietly, "Evelyn, this isn't just cruel. This is financial abuse. And in America, it's a crime." I stared at her, had no idea. Then she added, "We're going to a lawyer tomorrow. You're not fighting this alone." For the first time in days, felt hope. The next morning, Gloria drove me to an elder law attorney. His office was quiet, warm, safe. I told him everything. How Mark had access to my accounts, how he took it all without permission, how Melissa justified it. When I finished, the lawyer leaned forward and said, "Mrs. Thompson, this is textbook senior financial exploitation. You have a strong case. And you will get your money back." My heart almost stopped. Then he added, "And if your son refuses cooperation, The state will step in. This is a serious offense. For the first time. It wasn't just painful. It was real. There were consequences. The lawyer drafted the legal notice that same afternoon. It was formal, cold, and absolutely unforgiving. When I read the words, financial exploitation of a senior citizen, my stomach twisted. This wasn't just a family argument anymore. This was a crime. By evening, Mark called me. Not to say sorry. Not to check if I was okay. But to yell. He shouted, "Mom, why would you do this? Why would you involve a lawyer?" I answered quietly. "Because you stole from me, Mark." There was silence. Then he said the line that shattered me. "I didn't steal. I took what I deserved." He deserved my entire life savings. The money his father and I spent 40 years building. My voice cracked as I whispered. "That money was my future, Mark." He cut me off. "Your future doesn't matter. Ours does." And just like that, the last bit of the sun I raised disappeared. The next morning I heard a knock. When I opened the door, there she was, Lily, my daughter-in-law, dressed in designer clothes I apparently financed. She didn't even greet me. She pushed past me into the living room and said, "You need to stop all this drama. Mark is stressed because of you. Because of me." I stood frozen while she looked around my house like she owned it. She smirked and added, "Honestly, Evelyn, why do you need that much money at your age? You're retired. You don't even go anywhere." Her words burned. I replied softly, "That was my safety. My independence." She rolled her eyes. "Your son and I have a future to build. Think of this as contributing." Contributing. They drained $800,000 and called it contributing. When I didn't respond, she stepped closer, her voice turning colder. "And let me be clear. You send another lawyer letter, and we will cut you out completely." She walked to the door, looked back with a fake smile and said, "Family should support each other. Remember that." And with that, the woman who took everything from me left my home like she owned it. The door shut behind Lily, and for the first time in months, the house felt painfully, suffocatingly small. I stood in the middle of my own living room. The room I bought, furnished, cleaned, lived in. And all I could think was, how did I raise a son who can watch his wife steal from me? My legs shook. I sank onto the couch, hands trembling, heart hollow. I had spent 38 years building a life, saving every spare dollar, working double shifts, skipping vacations, ignoring my own needs. Also, I could retire with dignity. But one signature from my son ended it all. And Lily's words kept ringing in my ears. "At your age, what do you even need money for?" I whispered to myself. "For my survival. For my independence. For the life I earned." But then another fear hit me. What if they weren't done? What if they were planning to take the house next? I felt a chill crawl up my spine. My phone buzzed suddenly. An unknown number. With shaky fingers I answered. A deep voice said, "Mrs. Carter. This is Detective Harris. We need to talk about unauthorized withdrawals from your account." My heart stopped. The nightmare wasn't over. It was just getting started. I froze, gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. "Detective Harris," I managed to whisper. My throat felt dry, my pulse loud in my ears. His voice was calm, professional, but every word sliced through me. "Ma'am, the withdrawals from your retirement account were flagged. The bank reported suspicious activity. We need to confirm if you authorized them." My stomach twisted. I inhaled shakily. "No, I didn't. I never touched that money." There was a pause. Heavy one. Then he said, "That's what we suspected." My heart sank deeper. "Mrs. Carter, the signatures don't match yours. Someone forged them." My breath caught in my chest. Forged. Not mistaken. Not confused. Forged. I felt the room tilt. "Ma'am," he continued, "who else has access to your documents or ID?" My mind raced. Only two names appeared. Daniel and Lily. I swallowed hard, the truth burning its way up. My son and his wife. Detective Harris exhaled sharply, as if he already knew. "We'll need you to come in tomorrow morning. This may qualify as financial abuse of an elder." The phrase hit me like a slap. Financial abuse of an elder. I ended the call and sat motionless. A storm of emotions churned inside me. Anger, disbelief, heartbreak, humiliation. But beneath all of it, something new sparked. The strength I thought I had lost. A voice inside me finally whispered, "They took your money. Don't let them take your dignity too." Slowly I stood up. Tomorrow, I wasn't going to be a silent mother. Tomorrow, I was going to become a fighter. I didn't sleep a single minute that night. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the hallway outside. The same hallway Daniel used to run through as a little boy. And now the same hallway he walked past me without even looking. Morning came cold and gray. I walked into the kitchen, and Daniel and Lily were already there, laughing, eating breakfast, as if they hadn't stolen my entire life savings. My hands trembled, but my voice stayed steady. "Daniel." He looked up casually. "Yeah, Mom." I placed my phone on the table. Screen still open to the police call log. "A detective called me last night." Silence. Lily's fork froze midair. Daniel's smile vanished instantly. I continued, keeping my eyes locked on his. "They said my retirement account withdrawals were flagged. They said the signatures were forged." Lily swallowed hard. Daniel shifted in his chair, suddenly uncomfortable. I leaned forward. "So I'll ask you one more time. Did you take my money?" Daniel exhaled loudly, forcing a half laugh. "Mom, come on. You're overreacting." Lily quickly added, "Yeah, it wasn't a big deal. We needed it. And you weren't." I cut her off sharply. "I wasn't what, Lily?" My voice echoed through the kitchen. She blinked, startled. "You weren't using it," she muttered. The exact same line. The same cold sentence that tore me apart the first time. I stared at them, really stared. My son, my daughter-in-law, two people who had smiled in my face and emptied my entire future behind my back. And then Daniel finally snapped. "Mom, stop acting like a victim. We're family. We deserve support too." I felt something in me harden. Wall. A clarity I had been too scared to face. Slowly, deliberately, I said, "Family doesn't steal. Family doesn't forge signatures. Family doesn't drain a mother's life savings." They both went silent. I picked up my purse and headed toward the door. Daniel stood up quickly. "Where are you going?" I turned back, meeting his eyes. Not as a helpless mother, but as a woman reclaiming her power. "To the police station." Daniel's face drained of color. Lily whispered something under her breath. But I didn't stop. I didn't turn back. For the first time in years, I walked out for myself. The police station was cold. But the silence inside Daniel's house had felt colder. A young officer called me into his office, took my statement, and listened carefully. When I showed him the forged signatures, he nodded slowly. "Ma'am, this is a felony." "Felony? My son. My Daniel." I felt my throat tighten, but I didn't stop. I had stayed quiet my entire life. This time I wouldn't. He filed the complaint. And just like that, something inside me finally exhaled. When I returned home, Daniel and Lily were pacing the living room. Lily rushed toward me first. "Evelyn, please, we can fix this. Withdraw the complaint." Daniel's face was blood red. "Mom, do you want me to go to jail?" I looked straight into his eyes. "You put yourself in that position, Daniel." For the first time, he didn't have an answer. That night, I heard arguing from their room. Lily shouting, Daniel crying, doors slamming. But it wasn't my burden anymore. The next morning, Daniel knocked softly on my door. He looked broken. "Mom, I'm sorry." For a second, I saw the little boy he used to be. The one who brought me wildflowers from the yard. The one who swore he'd buy me a house one day. But apologies don't fix theft. "What are you sorry for, Daniel?" He swallowed hard. "For taking the money. For lying. For letting Lily convince me that you'd be fine." His voice cracked. I wasn't thinking straight. He fell to his knees. "Please don't let them arrest me." Closed my eyes. I thought about every time I protected him. Every time I sacrificed. Every time I put his needs before mine. And then, every second of betrayal. Slowly I said, "I will withdraw the complaint. But only under 3 conditions." He looked up desperate. "Anything, Mom." I raised my hand. "First, you pay back every cent. Not to me. To a separate account in my name." He nodded quickly. "Second, Lily has no access to my finances ever again. Daniel hesitated, then agreed. And third, I took a deep breath. You move out. Both of you. Today. His face fell. Mom, where will we go? I looked away. You should have thought of that before taking my future. They packed quietly. No yelling. No excuses. Just consequences. Before leaving, Daniel paused at the doorway. Mom, I love you. For the first time in months. I believed he meant it. But love without accountability is just noise. The next weeks were strange. Quiet. Lonely. But peaceful. Daniel began sending small repayments every week. Not much. But enough to show he was trying. I joined a senior book club. I volunteered at a shelter. I relearned how to live for myself. The fear was gone. The shame faded. And slowly, dignity came back home. 3 months later, Daniel knocked on my door again. This time with no Lily. No demands. No excuses. Just a brown paper envelope. I opened it. Inside was a check. Huge one. It's all the money, Mom. Everything I took. Paid back. My eyes filled, but I didn't speak. He continued. And I left Lily. I looked up shocked. He nodded. She pushed me into things I never should have done. But I let her. That's on me. Then softly. I just want my mom back. I stepped forward. And hugged my son. A long, finally healing hug. No instant forgiveness. No forgetting the past. Just a beginning. Start. 'Cause sometimes, you don't rebuild the same relationship. You build a new one. One with boundaries, respect, and honesty. And in that moment I realized, I didn't just get my money back. Got myself back.